Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, today I saw a message that kind of put a smile on my face. It involves somebody that I knew back 20 years ago, who now has just made it very big. The person I'm talking about is a young lady by the name of Aisah Hasnie. Aisah Hasnie has now been promoted to an anchor and the White House, correspondent for Fox News. Now, that you don't get much higher at Fox News when you get to be an anchor chair and also to be the White House correspondent. But Aisah has earned that job, and it has taken her a long time to do it. But you know what? I have a lot to tell you about Aisah because, believe it or not, Aisah got her start in radio working on my show 20 years ago at WOWO 1190 AM. I remember back in those days, she had just graduated from Indiana University. And this was her first job. Now, she had great credentials coming out of IU. She'd won a number of awards, and frankly, the station said, hey, let's give her a shot. And the program director at that time, the news director, decided to put her on, opposite me. And if you want to have something to go against, I guess I was the person to go against, because I was kind of wild. That's about the only thing I could tell you. Aisah was very reserved, very shy, very calm. And I remember one thing in specific. There was a Talk Like a Pirate Day, and you got to understand something. Back in those days when I was on WOWO, I was not politically oriented. I would just talk about all sorts of stuff that was going on, stuff that I found to be interesting. And I'd talk about those things. One of the things I saw to be interesting one time was Talk Like a Pirate Day. And on that day, I started talking like a pirate with all the args and all the other stuff going on, and matey and this. And I was talking to Aisah across the glass, because at WOWO, you had me in the control room in the broadcast facility, and right across the double glass was the newsroom, and Aisah was sitting there looking at me. We were looking at each other, and I would be conversing with her. And I'm using all these pirate phrases, and she's looking like, what did he say? Like she didn't understand what I was saying. And the other newsman aboard the station, I believe Berghofer is his name, he's sitting back there laughing behind her because he knew what I was saying and she didn't understand what it was. And she was just about as naive as you could get. Like I said, this was 20 years ago. Keep that in mind. 20 years ago. This is the way Aisah looked back in those days. She was young. She was fresh. She was just out of IU. And as a matter of fact, here's a young lady that her parents wanted her to be a doctor. That's right. She was born in Lahore, Pakistan. The family came here when she was 6 years of age because her uncle, I believe, was in the military and sponsored the family to come to the United States. And they all became naturalized citizens. And they lived for a while in Illinois, I think it was Centralia, and then moved to Indiana, down southeast area of Indiana. Well, anyway, Aisah grew up here in Indiana. And, well, she just... she's got a brother and a sister. Brother's an emergency room physician, and her sister's, I think, a psychiatrist. Very smart siblings. Well, they wanted her to be a doctor also. Her parents did. And she enrolled in IU. She was enrolled in pre-med. She didn't like it. She didn't have fun with it. Well, she had a cousin who worked over in I believe it was Centralia, Illinois, worked at a TV station. Small TV station, nothing big or anything. Well, I guess Aisah was around 17 years of age, and her cousin said, hey, why don't you come over here for the summer? We'll try to figure out what to do, because Aisah was not doing well in college. She was on probation, folks. Just understand that. Well, anyway, so she goes over to Centralia, and her cousin works for a TV station. So she said, well, just tag along. And she started tagging along and seeing what was going on, seeing how they did things. And she would go along with the camera crew, and well, she'd start writing stuff and adding stuff in. And well, one time she put together a little package a story. Well, the news director at that station looked at the package and went, oh, that's pretty good, and ran it. Well, having a story you wrote being presented on TV was all the spark that Aisah needed to move up into the broadcasting business, and yes, she did. Yeah, she did abandon the medical field, much to the chagrin of her father, I should point out. But she decided, yeah, I'm going to be in radio and television, and down at Indiana University, she excelled. She won a number of awards, and after she graduated, she was looking for a job, and she applied at WOWO Radio in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, WOWO back then was a 50,000-watt big-time station, and she took a job at WOWO, and they placed her in the newsroom, working opposite me. I think we worked together a couple of years, and one day Aisha came into the studio, and she said, hey, can I talk to you a bit? I said, sure, what's up? She said, look, I've just been offered a job by WANE TV. Wayne TV was called back at that time. It's a CBS affiliate. She said, you think I should take it? I looked at her and I said, Aish, take the job. Because she was a natural. Well, ultimately, she did take the job at Wayne TV, was there for a couple of years, and she did pretty well. She was a reporter, part-time anchor. She did about everything you could do at the local TV station. And ultimately, well, somebody down in Indianapolis at Channel 59 recognized talent, and they hired her away from Wayne TV, and she went down to Channel 59, Fox. And boy, did she start to blossom. And boy, did she ever. Aisha became a star down in Indy. A lot of people knew she was. She was down there for a number of years, and eventually her agent got her a slot at Fox National, New York City. Now, when Aisha joined Fox back then, she took the lowest job of the totem pole, folks. You're working overnights. You're getting the lousy assignments, but she took everything they gave her, she took. She ran with it, and she made it look pretty good. As a matter of fact, she took the dull stories and made dull stories kind of entertaining because she was good at what she was doing. She was learning. She was sharp. You got to remember, like I said, her siblings were one's a doctor, the other was a psychiatrist. Aisha just liked what she was doing, much to the chagrin of her parents. She was a broadcaster. Now, so she starts at Fox and she starts gradually moving her way up the totem pole over a number of years. And a number of jobs she took and a number of stories she took on, she did them all. And occasionally you'd see her on national TV or substituting for somebody on a anchor slot or whatever. You're going, hey, there's Aish. Because she was getting better and better all the time. Well, now they finally have come out and made the big announcement that she is now an anchor. Aisah Hasnie is now an anchor and the White House correspondent for Fox News. That is about, well, that's a pinnacle, folks. That's what it is. That is a pinnacle. Now, I do not like the photo they published of her. It looks too young. That doesn't look like she looks now. If you take a look at Aisha now, Aisha don't look that way like she did then. Yes, I remember when she was young getting into this, but I can tell you this. This is a young lady with a lot of class, a lot of professionalism, and she's a really good, caring person. She's about one of the nicest people you ever know, about as cute as a bug's ear, but she is a professional. And when she and I talked some while back, she says, hey, I'm just doing what I know how to do and doing what I love doing. That's what Aisha does. Her parents are very proud of her. Her siblings are very proud of her. And the people that she worked with, whether it was at WOWO or Wayne TV, Channel 15, we're all very proud of her. Because, well, she started in our world, and she has gone up to the big time. And now she's riding a star. And I hope she rides that star for as long as she possibly can. Because in the world of broadcasting and the media, Aisah Hasnie is truly a star. Some of the biggest talk going on in Washington, D.C. right now has to do with the president utilizing his military power through the United States military to bomb drug runners in the Caribbean and off the coast of the Pacific Ocean. He's been doing it pretty regularly, taking these people out. The latest issue says, well, they hit a boat, but there were survivors, so another hit was done. And whether this is legal or not, whether the president is violating international law, whether the president doesn't have the war authority given to him by Congress. Well, let's talk about that for a little bit, see what's going on. You have to understand something here before we follow anything else. Article 2 of the Constitution says the president is the head of the military. He is the controller of the military. He's the one who makes the decisions. It says so right there, Article 2 of the Constitution. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. You're talking about, well, the president can't do this. He can't go out and blow up drug runners. You had one member of Congress said, well, these drug things, they don't affect the United States. That's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The number one consumer of drugs probably in the world happens to be the United States of America, as much as I hate to say it. These drug boats out there are running with 50, 60, 70 million dollars of drugs every time they're running. These guys who drive the boats, it's drive or die. That's what they're going to do. This is their job, to go out there and run this stuff into other boats in the sea, or else even on the land someplace. They're putting drugs into America, and everybody knows it except, well, politicians apparently. But does the president have a right to bomb these planes out of the water? Well, many members of Congress say no, he doesn't have that authority. Well, let's talk about a couple of things that happened. Do you remember when Barack Obama lobbed 540 drones, killing all kinds of people, 540, and some of whom were Americans? Barack Obama used 540 drones in Libya. Now, Bill Clinton, back in the 1990s, anybody remember Bosnia in 1994? Anybody remember Serbia in 1999? Those were not acts of war. Congress did not declare acts of war. Clinton said, we're sending our troops over there, and they fought in those particular wars without the Congress act of war. We didn't have an act of war at that time. And that's some of the other things going on. Now, and finally, let me get into this one. President H.W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, remember, he went into Panama. Yep. When President George W. Bush went into Panama under Operation Just Cause, that was not approved by Congress, but that was to take out Noriega. Remember, these things were done by the president because the president has the authority. And this goes clear back about 89 years to the Curtis Wright Supreme Court decision. Well, the Supreme Court says somebody's got to be in charge. And that somebody, according to them, is the president of the United States. He can make those decisions because he, in fact, is the president. You got to have somebody running the rodeo. Now, if the Congress decides to say, we're going to shut the president down, we're not going to let him do this, we're going to push some sort of authority they have, I guarantee you this is going to end up back in the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's called the Curtis Wright decision. 89 years ago, Supreme Court says, the president's in charge. President makes the decisions. And that was 89 years ago. Let's see the Congress want to take that one on. So this is what's going on, folks. Yes, the military is bombing drug runners. And if anybody thinks those are fishing boats, here's a fishing boat, and here's a fishing boat. Notice a fishing boat has fishing poles. Notice these other boats have big giant barrels of gasoline, and then covering that is millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of drugs. And notice those motors on the back of those boats. Those are high powered. Those things cost thousands of dollars a piece. But the job of these drug runners is to do just that, to go fast. And that's what they're called, go fast boats. They run the drugs because, well, apparently people in America want them. But the story is, though, can the president of the United States, through the United States military, say, you're not coming to our country because you have declared war on us with your drugs. You are killing Americans. And you are doing that with your fentanyl, with your cocaine, with your heroin. You're killing Americans. You're going to kill Americans? We're going to take you out. And if that's what we got to do, folks, that's what we've got to do. So like I said, Curtis Wright case from 89 years ago, if Congress wants to bring it up, bring it on, folks. But right now, Article 2 of the Constitution says the president runs the military, and when he runs it, he's going to run it what he sees fit. And other presidents, Obama, Bill Clinton, even H.W. Bush, have used their authorities in other countries without Congresses saying we're declaring war. So you understand something. That's how it works. Just remind yourself of that the next time you hear commentators talk about it, threatening whatever they're going to threaten. Well, because that's their job, and they have no other job, apparently. Well, here's a picture of a map of the continental United States I want you to take a look at. What it shows you is two particular things, the red section and the white section. Now, the red section, all of those states that you see in red have gas prices that are below $3 a gallon. You heard me right. The price of gas is below $3 per gallon. Now, the white spaces you see are above $3 a gallon. Matter of fact, you go out to California, average price of regular gas in California is, well, around $5 a gallon. You heard me right. That's $5 a gallon for gas in California. Now, the problem is there's only a certain amount of refining that exists in the state of California that serves a lot of folks on the West Coast, whether it's up to state of Washington or clear in there to Nevada and Utah and those other places. Well, they got a limited number of refineries that, can refine the oil. And the charges and the regulations and the cost that are levied onto these refineries by the states, makes the gas even more expensive in those states. And then there's one other state you may want to take a look at right here in the middle of America is, Illinois. Now you'll notice right around Illinois, you got Indiana, you got Iowa, you got Wisconsin, you got all the other states surrounding Illinois, and all the other states outside of Illinois are less than $3 a gallon. But Illinois is not. Now, why is that? Simple. Illinois has a huge gas tax, and I mean a monstrous gas tax. The same problem exists also if you look into the Northeast. See all those states in the Northeast? Yes, they have limited refinery capability because the refineries are not necessarily big up there like they are in the South or the Midwest. We have a huge refinery right here in the state of Indiana up in the northwest portion. It's a giant refinery. Takes care of that giant refinery could make the gas in Illinois much cheaper than it is, but it doesn't because the taxes on gas in the state of in Illinois are absolutely atrocious. The same goes for California as well. So if you live in one of the red states, your gas is below $3 a gallon, and hopefully will stay that way for a while. Oil producers, they want to see a barrel of oil go somewhere between $66 and $78 a barrel. That keeps them flowing, keeps them and their economy working. But the truth of the matter is how much the gas costs when you reach the pump. And in 32 states, the pump costs less than $3 a gallon. Hadn't been that way in 4 or 5 years. But now it's below $3 a gallon. Some places you're seeing like $2.75 a gallon, $2.69 a gallon. It's dropping that low. But in the white states, they're paying a whole lot more than you're paying. And the most glaring one right there is the state of Illinois. Everybody surrounding it's under $3 a gallon, but not Illinois, because the taxes in Illinois are so outrageous. And the same goes for California and many of the Northeast states. So now you understand, if you live in Indiana or any of the other red states surrounding the Midwest, we're all below $3. Well, everybody else on the coast, they get to enjoy $5 a gallon. Sometimes being away from the shoreline from the seas ain't necessarily a bad deal. And we're in flyover country. And you know what? It's working out pretty good for us. Well, if you want to get into a big discussion of rules and laws, let's talk about the filibuster. Now, the filibuster was originally created by Congress to say if someone doesn't like something, they can stand on the floor of the House or the Senate, talk as long as they want, forever if they want to, and try to block a vote. Nothing will happen with the filibuster. Well, the last time there was an actual people on the floor talking for days, and I'm thinking it went over 70 days if my memory serves me correct. It could be wrong. But the last time the actual filibuster was utilized was back in 1964. And that's when the Democrats, and you heard me right, the Democrats led a filibuster involving the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You see, the Republicans were in favor of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Democrats vehemently opposed it. And so they decided to filibuster, and the filibuster went on for weeks. Well, ultimately, when that finally ended, because it was the Republicans managed to get the vote done, Republicans voted for the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and the Democrats, none of them voted for it. So it was all a Republican vote, 0 Democrats. Well, later on, they said, look, we got to find a better way of doing this. So what they did was they adopted a rule. Now, keep in mind, a rule is not a mandate. It's not a forever. It's not in the Constitution. The rule was simple. You have to have 60 votes in the Senate for something to pass. That way they said, okay, unless you got 60 votes in your party, and we haven't had that in a long time when you think about it. It's pretty close. You got mostly House, mostly Democrats, mostly Republicans. It's pretty much even Steven most of the time. But you have to have 60 votes, which means if you want to vote on something, people from both parties have to vote to approve it. If not, the automatic rule comes in that says you have to have 60 votes. All right, that's where we stand. Now, Donald Trump says, I want to get rid of that 60-vote mandate, that 60-vote rule, so we have the majority in the Senate so we can rule on whatever we want. Now, keep in mind, the 60-vote requirement does not affect financial things. Financial issues like budgets and those kind of things, that's majority rule. That's 51, okay? So the Senate has a certain amount of leeway, but anything aside from financial, it's got to have 60 votes. So President Trump says, no, I want to get rid of that so we can do things. Well, many in the Senate do not want to get rid of it. I'll tell you why. Because if you get rid of it, the next time the Democrats are in power, they know, hey, they're going to pass bills and things that you don't want to see. James Carville, okay, you've already seen him. You know who he is. He's already gone on and says, well, they get rid of the filibuster, we take over the Congress. We're going to make Puerto Rico a state. We're going to make Washington, D.C. a state. And we're going to pack the Supreme Court with anywhere between 13 and 21 judges. This is what they want to do if there is no filibuster rule. They say if we're in charge, we've got majority, we're going to have majority rule in the Senate. And if we are the majority, we are going to do whatever we want. Like I said, packing the Supreme Court, making Puerto Rico, making Washington, D.C., both states, if the filibuster rule goes away. Now, that's why many in Congress don't want it to go away. Yes, it makes for a problem trying to get anything done. But if you take it away, the Democrats have already said what they're going to do. They're going to load up and they're going to take control so that no other party, no Democrats, or no other Republican, rather, will ever be able to have power in office. And if a Republican gets to be a president again, well, they're just not going to do what he wants to do because they're going to say, we have control. And if he doesn't like what's going on, the president tries to push it, you know what they'll do? They'll impeach him. If they get the House and the Senate, they will impeach any Republican president who they don't like at a moment's notice. This is why the filibuster rule is so important, folks. I know many of you say, well, we got to get rid of that. We got to get things done. Trump wants to get it done. I agree, he does. But getting rid of the filibuster, that's going to cause some problems that you can't even imagine. Because if you do it for the Republicans, the Democrats are going to say, yeah, we're going to do it. We are going to do it even bigger, badder, and worser than you did. And how would you like to have Washington, D.C. as a state? It's a federal land. But they want to make it a state because that way they get 2 more senators, more House of Representative members. Puerto Rico a state, more Democrats in there, more Democrat senators, more Democrat House members. This is about power. This is about control. And they want so much control that there's no way that any other party can get anything done. That means the United States would turn into, well, California, because California has very, very few Republicans, and the Democrats control everything in California, including the price of gasoline, by the way, which now is over $5 a gallon. But keep this in mind, folks. Should we get rid of the filibuster or keep it in place? Right now, we're keeping it in place because what could happen if we get rid of it? Sure, the Republicans make some gains, but the Democrats are going to come in and destroy what they think are Republican strongholds, namely the Supreme Court, and going to make sure Congress has so many Democrats in it, there's no way Republicans could vote or get anything. The Democrats would have ultimate control of the United States. This is what they want, and that's what the filibuster could give them. Just something you need to know before you make a decision. Be careful with something you want, you just might get it. You know, you always hear realtors use the term location, location, location when it comes to, well, where you want to have your home. Because if you have kids, you want to make sure they get the best possible education they can. And there's nothing wrong with that concept. Well, it turns out that Money Magazine decided to rank public high schools in the state of Indiana to see which public high school was the best or which public high schools were the best. And they came up with their top 30 public high schools in the state of Indiana. They said these are the best when location, 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 as far as your kids' education goes, well, where it ought to come into mind. Now, here's the curriculum standards they used. English and language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, fine arts, physical education and health, and finally, world languages. And a lot of this is based upon the STEM concept, the STEM research. And so that's where you're looking at. Are these colleges, are these schools getting these kids properly educated so they can go to college if they choose to? Now, I got to keep something in mind nowadays. You don't need a college education to become a successful person. And people kept telling you, well, you got to go to college. You don't. We have so many trades out there that that we're hurting for the environment because we don't have enough people to do those things. Like when something goes bad in your house, the electrical system, who do you call? An electrician. When your sanitary system, your toilet goes out, who do you call? A plumber. And on and on. When your car goes bad, who are you going to call? A mechanic. Well, those jobs, those careers, people who build houses, people put in your air conditioning system, those are trades. And those trades are very valuable and earn people who are in them pretty doggone good amount of money. So you don't necessarily need college to become extremely well off and extremely, highly thought of. It's trade schools that are big also. But this Money Magazine decided to take a look at high schools putting kids into college. We'll rank the first top 10 and see where our city came in. Number 1, Carmel High School down there in Carmel, Indiana. 5,000 plus students. Number 1 school in the state for, well, all the things, the curriculum standards and benchmarks. And Carmel does pretty well in the athletics area as well. Number 2 is Zionsville High School. Number 3, West Lafayette Senior High School. Started 7th grade and go all the way up to 12th grade. They're number 3 in the entire state for, well, education. Number 4 is a private school. It's called Signature School, and it's Indiana's first charter school. It was done back, many, many years ago. First charter school. Charter is Signature School down in Indy. Number 5 is Heron High School, which I hadn't even heard of, also down in Indianapolis. Number 6, Fishers, Indiana, another affluent area of the state of Indiana. They're number 6. And from the same area, number 7 is Hamilton Southeastern. 2 high schools that compete against each other, but basically well-known schools. And here's the number 8, Guerin Catholic. 800 students, Guerin Catholic, number 8 over in Noblesville, Indiana, for the best for curriculum. Get your kids into college. Number 9 is Munster High School up in northwestern Indiana. Number 10, Park Tudor School, which is a private school, and it's a college prep school down in the Indianapolis area. Those are the top 10 schools in the state of Indiana. Now you're saying, oh, wait a minute, where's Fort Wayne in here? Don't we have good schools? Well, I would think we do. Turns out the number 13 school in the state of Indiana for the best school, as far as college prep goes, is Homestead High School in the southwest Allen County area. That's what Southwest Allen County Homestead High School is considered number 13 in the entire state out of the top 30 schools. They've got a lot of great programs, a lot of great fine arts programs, They have just about everything you can think of, a lot of science stuff, and put pretty good athletes on the field. Homestead High School is number 13. Now, did any of our other big schools make it in that top 30 list? The answer is no. The only Fort Wayne school that made it into the top 30 schools in the state of Indiana, according to Money Magazine, was Homestead High School. So, if you're looking for the right location, if you want your kid to go to college, Money Magazine says the best place to live is Southwest Fort Wayne. And that's probably why so many people live in Southwest, because Southwest Fort Wayne is a city unto itself. And now you know why people live there, because the education is the main factor that determines where folks live. And here in Fort Wayne, apparently, it's Homestead High School in Southwest Allen County.